That's wonderful. I have to read your book, The Gift of Acceptance, because I think it will be, full of insights for me. And I'm curious about acceptance
Mm.
and your evaluation of acceptance, because I want to know if it's a gift, or
Mm.
do you think that acceptance is something as I used to see it, that I needed really, I needed to work on acceptance and be disciplined and kind of force myself into gratitude and acceptance. And you said the book is The Gift of Acceptance.
Mm.
Okay.
Well, acceptance, people have misconceptions about acceptance. Acceptance isn't resignation, it's not giving up. I always say that acceptance is a verb, it's a choice. We all have a choice in how we, what mindset we want to create, how we want to go forward with whatever we experience in life, just like we all have a choice in how we view the pandemic right now. And one of my greatest teachers, and I did mention this in my TED talk, was that the girl next to me in hospital called Maria, who woke up from a coma,
Mm-hmm.
and she was 18, and she spent the rest of her life as a quadriplegic. She was the most injured person in the hospital and could only move her head. And they put her next to me in hospital. They put us together in beds next to each other because we were closest in age. And she was one of the greatest teachers I could ever hope for, because even though she was much more disabled than I was, I mean, she could only move her head. She always smiled and she was always happy. And if anyone had a reason to complain, it was her. And I could never complain. All I had to do was look next to me and see Maria, and I could never feel sorry for myself. So she taught me about acceptance. And, one day that book was written because I was, writing, well, actually, so that was the one part of it, Maria teaching me about acceptance. And then I was in Outback Australia speaking at a small country hall one day, and there was a lady there who was in her mid-80s, and she said, "Thank you for coming along and sharing your story." And she said, I have 8 children. Oh, actually, no, 7. My son just died. And I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that." And she said, "Oh, don't feel sorry for me, dear, because just like you, I've been given the gift of acceptance." And it was in
Wow.
that moment that I realized that accepting what I'd been through in life was key to moving through, the challenges and the experiences. And I realized that acceptance is the one thing that life is always inviting us to do, to accept what we're going through now. The people that are really suffering this pandemic are the people that can't accept. Although the irony of that, of course, is that, when you can't, if you accept the non-acceptance, that's acceptance too, right? Because some things are easier to accept than others. It's much easier, I say, to accept losing a game of tennis than it is losing a child. So some things, are more challenging. But basically, that is what life is always asking us to do. I mean, acceptance to me is a verb. It's saying yes to life. It's saying yes to, this experience, because this is all we have right now. We have no idea what's around the corner. This is the experience where we are right now today. Can we say yes to this experience?
That's wonderful. And how do you tell, what's the gut feeling that you use, or intuition, what kind of wisdom to separate acceptance from the concept of giving up? Because for a
Mm.
lot of people, they say, well, I have to accept this, so I'm going to give up.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes I say, well, how to know what to accept and to flow with life, and
Mm.
what to really say, I think that I can change this, or I think that I can make it. I think that I can do it.
Yeah, well, that's that's the $1 million question, and nobody can answer that but you. And I think that when I have a challenge that I'm wondering, do I keep fighting? Do I give up? Do I flow? I mean, sitting in silence and really, finding what are the messages that I'm getting. And I think that we can often, we might be just given a different direction. Life will say, okay, well, there's the door's closed here, but just find a different way. Just, approach this from a different angle. I mean, I'm someone who's incredibly persistent, and I won't give up, and I'll keep going. But sometimes what's the choice? I think you have to ask, well, what's it going to cost me if I give up or if I keep fighting? And I think that's what wisdom is, trying to understand, what the internal messages are and why are you doing it? If you really ask the question, what's my why? And if that comes from a really authentic, altruistic place, I think that you're on the right path.
Well, let me tell you that some of us last year, we visited your beautiful country, well, a continent.
Yeah.
We went to Sydney, and it was an amazing week. And we had so much fun, and we learned from Australians. I think it's a wonderful society. And if you have to describe your values as an Australian, what could be those values that you really cherish?
I think, we connectedness and togetherness. And I think that is really showing in the way that we have approached the pandemic right now. The numbers right now in Australia, I think in the whole country, maybe we've got 5 cases in the whole country.
Wow.
It's almost like, I've just returned. So I've been living in the US for 6 years and only just returned 4 weeks ago. So I had to quarantine, and everybody has been, incredible here. Everybody locks down, everybody's caring about each other. And, there's some people that, aren't so happy with it, but really we understand that we want to protect each other. And because of that, our numbers are incredibly low and life is pretty much back to normal. So I think that we really value that connectedness, that togetherness, the caring for others. And I think that sometimes it might seem at odds with, we're sort of pretty easygoing, or as my husband said, it's not bad for a bunch of convicts. So, I'm really proud of this country and the way we've handled the pandemic compared to, for example, America. So my husband is American, and, that's very much about, freedoms. And, nobody can make us wear a mask. Nobody can tell us to lock down. We're here. It's more about the greater good of all. And I think that that's a great quality.
Wow. And that's the difference in results. It's amazing that you can compare both. And it's actually exactly the truth, what you're saying, because, some of us live in the US. I live in Miami. We are connecting from Miami to you in Australia. And why do you think, Janine, and I'm going to ask this question and then open for members of the circle to ask you some questions as well. Why do you think that for so many human beings, change is a difficult task to admit, to process, to achieve, and it's better to stay in the comfort zone?
Yeah, we don't deal with uncertainty very well. We fear of losing the things that we think define who we are. And people ask me about that all the time, particularly from people who are athletes who say, I couldn't, if I couldn't run or if I couldn't play the sport that I enjoy, then I wouldn't want to live. But you never know. I mean, it's in the letting go. I mean, I'm a great fan of Joseph Campbell, who says you've got to let go of the life you have to get the life that's waiting for you. And you'll know from my TED talk that I have chairs on the stage, and each of those chairs represents a stage in the hero's journey, which Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, wrote about. So I think that we're all on a hero's journey, and I think that we're all repeating patterns. And when we recognize that, it makes it easier to deal with the challenges that we're currently going through. But we don't like feeling uncomfortable. I think that's part of the human condition.
Well, I have to say, Janine, that I thought of saying this to you, but I said, well, why not? Janine has a beautiful smile and she has a sense of humor after all what
Yeah.
happened to her. But I have to confess to you that when I read the book and I heard about your story, I had to stop using an expression. I don't know if somebody else uses that expression in the US or in Australia, but sometimes when I feel really, really
Yeah.
overtired, that I'm exhausted, I have said, I feel like I've been hit by a truck.
I was hit by a truck.
And you were literally hit by
I
a
know.
truck. And when I read that story and I said, oh my God, I will never say that because, Janine is lucky to be telling the story and to be inspiring other
Yeah.
people. But for so many other ones, they were hit by a truck and they are dead. So, and I wanted to tell you this because, it came to my mind that sometimes we use words as an expression of something, but really nothing that I've been feeling, the exhaustion or the tiredness could compare with the real situation that you live because you were literally hit by an utilities truck. So I
Yeah.
want to use
Thank you. I know.
to have
And
that
it's
story.
true. And, talking about humor, it's been a really important part of my life. Being able to laugh is, there's a great healing power in that. And I also want to say that, you know, every single day of my life, living with disability and living with, so the people know I am walking, but I'm a paraplegic. And, just living with paraplegia and living with chronic pain every single day that I get out of bed with pain, I have to say, yes, okay, bring it on, life. I stepped up. And in that way, we've all said that. The fact that we're here and we're in our bodies right now means that we've all said yes to this experience. And so that's all life is asking from us, just to show up and embrace every experience of life.
Wow, what a powerful message and what a wonderful opportunity to talk to you. If somebody has the last question, because I don't want to take much time of Janine, that has been very, very generous at these early hours in Australia to be with us. And of course, Janine, I read that also you had a sad divorce as part of
Yeah.
your life
So
story. So that could be in itself another battle because a lot of women are part of the circle and divorce sometimes, it's a change that brings a lot of grief and sadness in
I've
people's
been through,
lives.
I think I've had every experience that's possible, but I did. I had, 3 children, and then my husband at the time had a breakdown and he was diagnosed with a mental illness that made it impossible. I had to then, I went through a divorce and single parenting for 10 years, which was actually in many ways more challenging than my accident. So, I know what that's like. I know not everybody has been an elite athlete that's had an accident, but so many people have been through relationship pain and
Mhm.
trauma and separation. And, you learn a lot about yourself through that experience too.
Well, thank you so much for inspiring us today in this part of the world. And I will catch up with your books because I have to read the other ones.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, so the latest book, Defiant, which you've read, we're now just, I'm speaking to some producers in Hollywood, and we're looking into making that into either a movie or a documentary. So stay tuned.